booties for black girl nerds.
Very well.
How are you?
Great, great. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me. So I'll respect that time and I'll jump right to it. DeWanda, I'll start with you. You did such a phenomenal job showcasing the reality of being in a situation like Sloane's. What was your biggest responsibility when it came to telling her story?
My biggest responsibility, I thankfully in this case had a partner in this, but if you're leading a TV show, it's just a huge leadership position. You're making sure that there's continuity across directors and that everyone's like using the space in the way that makes sense, that all the guest stars are taken care of. So, my homework, my like nerdy actor homework had been done pretty far in advance. We had all 10 scripts before we got started. So really the greatest challenge was leading, and we were talking about this right before the call, but we were still in COVID. So leading during COVID was not fun. It was not fun. I didn't get to be like, let's go to dinner, DeWanda. You know what I mean?
Like everyone get their plate and eat in front of a Zoom camera.
Tragic. It was a tragic. It's like, okay, good night.
Close the laptop down. Well, this question is for both of you guys, more of a deep thought question. Sloane and Richard are essentially in a open relationship type scenario, and now I've personally come across some people that are in situations like that. But what are your thoughts about how this is not a common practice in the Black community in particular? Blair, I'll start with you.
Very, very quick. Very quickly, DeWanda, I think did an amazing job as the lead actress. I mean, there are four leads, but I coming on as a guest really is in support of her, but I was just really blown away by her leadership abilities and capabilities and handling her business like that. So I thank you for that. Number one, I gotta tell you, I was saying briefly earlier, this was kind of new to me. And the more, and also it's not one of those things you discuss. I didn't really know a lot of this happening in the Black community. It was my brother who told me, hey, oh man, our grandfather, well, actually my great uncle was a minister, and they were the old term swingers back in the day. I said, oh, folks been doing this for a long time. But I didn't really know it was so prevalent, not prevalent, but it was even as prevalent in the Black community as it is. So it was an eye opener for me.
Now for you, DeWanda?
Not an eye opener for me.
I wasn't gonna say that.
Well, since you actually touched on her acting abilities, actually that was my next question. Blair, your filmography is impressive, but I'm wondering what the difference was with working on a set with such amazing and talented women. Like, what would you say the environment differed from other projects?
For me?
Yes, and working with women like DeWanda and the others, like it's just so many great women on this cast.
It was incredible. One of the best experiences I ever had. But I have to tell you, I've never done anything, a lot of love scenes over the years, but never anything as intimate as we did, actually, in the midst of COVID, no less. But I was not comfortable with it initially. And it was Laura Eason and Lisa Taddeo, our executive producers, who convinced me to do it. Because I was like, I don't know what I'm walking into. When you have a movie, you have a beginning, middle, and end, an hour and a half. When you're doing a series, it could be wide open. I was like, I can read the first episode, but I don't know where you're going with this. I don't know if I feel comfortable. But it was those two ladies, and then the subsequent team of people, DeWanda, of course, notwithstanding, especially DeWanda, because all my work was with her, made it very comfortable. It's I guess it's cool to say I'm cool, I can do anything, whatever. But yeah, when you put yourself out there like that, it's I had questions, but they really were classy and elegant and took care of everything to protect all of us from beginning to end, I felt.
Well, you guys both did amazing. I cannot wait for people to see this series. I've been bragging about it. So thank you again so much for your time. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Oh, you too.
I'm good. How are you, Shailene?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking some of your time to speak with me today. I very much appreciate it. So I'll get right to it. Of all of the three women's stories, the one that I believe more women are quiet about is Lina's. Can you talk to me about what advice you might give someone who found themselves in a relationship with a significant other that no longer wanted to engage in physical contact with them?
Oh, yeah, it's so heartbreaking. I think that rightly so, we as a society have spent the last few years especially talking about what women don't want, and it's sort of a trickier conversation to talk about what we do want. That there are women everywhere who feel unfulfilled physically. And I think Lina, especially in the community that she comes from and the culture that she comes from, was taught that you should be ashamed of those wants and keep them to yourself. And that it's sort of a weird quality that you just need to try and muffle until you die. And I think that she sort of blinked awake at a certain point in her life and realized, this want that I feel and this desire that I feel cannot die in me. It was sort of eating her alive, her physical symptoms that she was feeling, the pain that she was in emotionally and physically. She just felt that it was completely unsustainable. So, it's easy to say, just take the reins of your life and go out there and get what you want, when, of course, we have all these pressures that we put on women, from men, from other women, to stay silent and to treat what could be the most beautiful, powerful thing about yourself like it's some gross curse. And I think that, finding some way in your life to get in touch with exactly what you want, and as an exercise to treat it like a beautiful thing instead of a shameful thing, and try to find it in a way that feels good.
Yeah, no, and you got the luxury, which I think is awesome, to work with the author of the book. Was there any particular characteristics that she was like, this is vital to bringing this from the pages on screen?
I think that the way Lisa writes, it was I never had that before, where you just have the complete map of the character right in front of you. And it was such a cheat. I think my process as an actor is I do a sort of bad writing version of that for any character. I try and write their thoughts and write their deepest, darkest secrets, and then sort of refer to that while I'm playing the character. In this case, all the homework was done for me, this time by a best-selling author who had spent time with the real Lina, wherever and whoever she is. And I think that while Lina is surrounded by shame and surrounded by people who are ashamed, I think Lisa made it clear to me that Lina is not somebody who's capable of subtext or cool or pushing it down, or that in her head she is in a different genre. She is in a fantasy novel. She's supposed to be the princess in the story, even if she's not surrounded by romantic circumstances. That fantasy is in her head constantly, and she will kill to make her life meet the genre that is in her head.
Well, I think you guys
that was lovely.
Sorry, I think you guys all did a lovely job at actually bringing this to life, and I think you did the characters justice in real life, and for those that are a fan of the book. So thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait for people to see the series.
Thank you so much.
Actually, it's good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys so much for taking some time to speak with me. I very much appreciate it. I'll get right into it. Lisa, telling stories like this can be difficult, especially when it's based on a true story, because you want to paint the picture as real as possible. Can you talk to me about the preparation you went through to turn your book into a series?
We hunkered down and discussed all of the stories and how to best serve them on the screen, and how to be able to move into the next concentric circle of the story of the book, and to populate it with even more stories that we've since gathered and heard about women, but to also keep it, it was a lot of conversation about how to sort of keep it for people who had read the book to feel like, oh, this is the book that I read, but also to give it the space and air it deserved to kind of, go out and colonize new spaces.
Awesome, awesome. And Shailene, this is a personal question for me because I can, as a journalist, I can very much relate to having to mask things. Although Gia is embarking on a journey to tell other women's stories, she has a story of her own unraveling at the same time. Thinking back on your career, is there any film you worked on where you might have had something going on in your personal life that you did an amazing job at not letting carry over onto your work on screen?
I don't know, Lisa, like, does that sound familiar at all in the experience of this show? Filming Three Women, actually, I was going through a really just an awful time in my life, like one of the worst times of my life. And yet I had this outlet of Gia and I got to spend every day with Lisa and Betty Gilpin and Gabby and DeWanda and so it felt like I could come to set and there was a little bit of a release valve for the experience I was having separately. But yeah, no, there's definitely a shield that goes up that divides personal and professional. And fortunately for me, and I don't know if you can relate as an artist, there is a little bit of wisdom in figuring out how to channel some of that energy and then figuring out what energy needs to just be left at home and returned to at the end of a long day.
Yeah, absolutely. So many times. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to add on to the idea that Shailene, there is no more professional human, not just in acting, but in beyond the professionalism and the ability to sort of not even put on a mask, but just create a mask out of something else. It was one of the most inspiring things to work alongside her, to see her knowing she was going through something and not exactly what, and still being absolutely brilliant every day is unbelievable and very rare.
That's awesome because I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell watching it. You just gave out such an amazing performance. And last question here. This is for both of you ladies. This is definitely a story that needs to be told, especially as a woman and me knowing friends and family that have gone through similar situations. What do you hope that women take away from the many messages of Three Women? Lisa, I'll start with you.
I hope the main thing always in everything that I do and everything that I think, and when I'm just utterly, a little bit too much TMI honest, it's just the idea of if I show you mine, maybe you'll show me yours kind of a thing. And I think we just need to do that more as a gender and as a world, actually. We just need to tell our story. So I hope that it inspires people to tell their own and to feel safe doing so.
Absolutely. Shailene, for you?
I mean, is it lame to say same answer? I think that it's so interesting to me how truth is truly the thing that sets us free, just being honest with ourselves and then by sharing it with others. And yet it's so easy to keep ourselves in these little micro prisons of suffering because we're not sharing those stories. So everything Lisa said, and to just remind people that it's so easy to think that our stories are the worst stories in the world, and yet everyone is going through them at the same time, and we're just not alone.
You're absolutely right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Again, the series is great. I can't wait for people to see it shortly, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
You, Shalise, you too.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I appreciate it. So I'll get right to it. Laura, telling stories like this can be difficult, especially when working on a true story, because you want to paint the picture as best as possible, as I was just mentioning to Lisa. Can you talk to me about how you got in the zone and the headspace to write the episodes that you worked on?
Yeah, so the major episodes, of course, I was part of the whole season as the showrunner, but the episodes that I wrote were very Maggie focused. So we had the great pleasure of meeting real life Maggie. It's her real name, it's her real story. So I was able to speak with her in addition to Lisa's incredible book and how deeply she goes, and then also reading a lot of the transcripts from the deposition, from her interviews. So I was very immersed in the story and building off the truth of it. And I just had a huge obligation to serve her story. And that was paramount always.
No, absolutely. You definitely want, if you're doing something like that, you want to make sure that you do it justice. And speaking of giving it justice, Gabrielle, you delivered such a great performance as showing Maggie's raw emotion. The sad reality, though, is that many find themselves in situations depicted in the series. What is your advice to women that might find themselves in Maggie's shoes?
Wow, that it's okay, and whatever you're feeling is it's valid, and that you should definitely, well, you know, you have a voice, yeah.
Because it was very difficult as a woman watching that, and me knowing people that have gone through it and that have read that book and relied on it heavily to help them get through things. But this question is for both of you guys. This is definitely a story that needs to be told, and no better time than now. What do you hope that women take away from the many messages of Three Women? Laura, I'll start with you.
Well, there's so much to the story, and holding all of the complexity and the variety of experience was really important to show that women are not a monolith. We don't all think and feel the same, and to really show that complexity was really, really important. And the other real hope for me is that people do recognize their own experience, and that they really feel less alone in what they feel and in what they want.
Right.
Yeah, I would say the same. I'd like people to take away that that we're not alone, that there's people around us to talk to when times are, you know, when times are tough, especially, that there's always a light.
Yeah, and I love seeing depictions of this on screen, because it lets people know that they are not alone. So thank you guys so much for bringing this to live action, of bringing it from the book to putting it on screen. You guys did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. Thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank you, Shailene. Thank you so much.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl